My name is Gianna Williams. I'm an outreach specialist for the City of Dallas in the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability. In our department, we work on many different environmental topics each day, working to preserve Dallas's natural resources and to encourage everyone to practice good environmental behaviors. We are so glad to be bringing our Earth Day Every Day series into 2025. As a result of the combined efforts of the Central Library and the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability, this program aims to highlight the many ways we can care for the planet year-round. This long-standing partnership between OEQS and the library has produced many informational programs that cover topics such as zero waste, water conservation, stormwater, and ways that everything ties into one another. Today, we'll be learning more about urban agriculture in Dallas. Often, the word agriculture prompts mental images of rural farms with acres upon acres of land dedicated to crops, heavy equipment, or farm animals. Our urban ag division is hoping to change that definition for residents. In a city as big and diverse as Dallas, it's not surprising that we have a rising number of people undertaking the task of growing and providing food. Utilizing methods like hydroponics, regenerative farming, vertical growing, and more, these growers are implementing sustainable practices that minimize the need for space or water, but maximize the nutritional value added to the city. Every drop of water saved, every vegetable successfully grown, and every person with access to fresh food that didn't have it before is a testament to the work being done by passionate folks around the city, some of which we'll be learning more about today. These growers depend on technology for a variety of uses, and it plays an important role in urban agriculture as it does in every facet of our lives. We'll be learning about how important it is in mapping our city for fresh food growers, food sellers, and where we need more options to take care of vulnerable communities and age groups. Excuse me. Presenting today, we have Yaritza Torres Espinoza, Climate Coordinator 2 for the City of Dallas OEQS Urban Agriculture Team. She has been with the city since 2023 and has experience with GIS and grassroots organizations and her expertise has enriched Urban Ag's efforts to carry out the city's comprehensive urban agriculture plan, the first plan of its type for Dallas, because we want every community in our great city to have access to healthy local food. And here she is.
Thank you, Gianna, for the introduction. That really helps in the first portion here. Well, hi, yes. Thanks for waiting, guys. We have little technical difficulties, but my name is Yaritza. I'm here with OEQS, our Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability. I will see our agriculture community health score, but a little bit background info before we really delve into that map. I wanted to give you an idea of where we're coming from urban agriculture in the city of Dallas. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we can answer as we go, or kind of at the end, however you want to do it. But let's see. So just a brief overview, Comprehensive Urban Ag Plan, or like how we call it, the COOP, was adopted unanimously by City Council in March 2023. This stems from our Comprehensive Environmental Climate Action Plan. It sets forth from our Comprehensive Environmental Climate Action Plan, Goal 7 of all Dallas communities having access to healthy local food. And if you want to review our Comprehensive Urban Ag Plan, you can see it right here in this QR code, or it's also in our temporary website, dallasclimateaction.com/food access. When we're looking at the COOP, though, overall, it's essentially it's seen as our long-term framework for building organizational capacity, as well as building out partnerships around the urban agriculture ecosystem here in the city of Dallas. Essentially, it lays out the groundwork of developing urban ag here in the city of Dallas, but looking at some time span of 5 to 10 years. As Gianna mentioned, when we're talking about urban ag, we're not necessarily only speaking about community gardens, but we're speaking of all types of gardening. But the definition we're currently leaning towards is generally referring to the cultivation process and distribution of agriculture sites in the urban and suburban settings, and facilities like vertical warehouse or rooftop farms, the common community garden, but also urban farms, hydroaeropotic facilities, and so. And with our urban agriculture map, we actually hope to actually showcase and unveil how the city does is actually currently urban active within the urban agriculture sphere than more than what most folks make up. As mentioned before, COOP comes from our CCAP goal 7. CCAP initiates for building capacities and partnerships, as well as improving food and through our food deserts and with partnerships, as well as reducing the distance from harbor people, so essentially food mileage, preparing food systems for more resilient in extreme weather events, with COVID and 2021 and 2022's freeze. Here, Texas didn't show us anything. We have very delicate food ecosystem here in Texas. And then as well as looking at preventing food waste, food donation, recovery, diversion, and composting. On the right-hand side, you see our specific CCAP sector targets, and essentially it levels out the metrics of where as the COOP urban ag team uses as we go forward. We're currently now in our 2nd year of implementation, with the aligning more of healthy food access, increasing urban acreage, we like to call it more urban agriculture acreage, not just urban gardening acreage, and as well as increasing local community food sourcing. Over here, it kind of gives you a project and timeline of how we developed the COOP. Alone, the City of Dallas wasn't the first one to bring forth this idea. This actually came from a lot of community efforts in the forefront and years of development before the city really even created the comprehensive urban ag plan. We had over 700 surveyed, feedback with the community members, 56 one-on-one interviews, site visits, and such when we were developing the plan. Essentially, before the COOP, there was an item called Healthy Foods here for Dallas, and there were some key recommendations in that overview. But with the COOP, we really integrated what the community told us more must need versus as important, but needs to have the building block before we get there. This kind of just shows you an overview of like where we outreach and did our engagement and where these people were living towards the DFW area. Even though the COOP is focused for the City of Dallas, nothing really shows per boundaries in food, especially when how our food comes in and out of the city. So just an overview of that. So from all that, we got 5 key recommendations, 1 through 5, not necessarily meaning that one is more important versus the other, all have urgency to them, but more into the outline of like our timeline of the 5 and 10 years of like the groundwork for urban ag, as well as some of these items are more like building blocks into the next steps. And really over here, I'm just going to give a highlight of some of the projects we've been able to activate in programs this past year and a half that we've gone through. But for each key recommendation that we see here, there are solutions, and per solution, there are action items that we work with within our city and externally. But just a quick overview of recommendation 1 is looking at reducing regulatory barriers. And I'm really just going to highlight the program we were able to do this year. We were actually launched the grant in partnership with Dallas County Human Health Services. It's a $10K grant. Applicants could apply up to $10K though, and it looks towards infrastructure support. So when we're speaking about agricultural infrastructure, will be more like water meters, greenhouses, cold storage, off-grid solar, water catchments, items like that are big ticket items, not necessarily seen during the norm. There are a lot of like grants actively in the city, county level too, as well, that helps in those items. But when we were looking at this grant, we were looking more like how can we support and incentivize developers and urban ag stakeholders to continue their activity they're doing here in the City of Dallas. So this is one of the items that I'm looking, just to give you an idea as well. To most people, the biggest barriers when they're going through agriculture is typically land access and water access. So wanted to go to the city hall and everything, just to get the permissions and certification of occupancy and everything. That alone is a big triumph, but as soon as you get the land, now you need to get water access. And even alone currently, like the added water access, like a water meter and water line could come up to like 8 to 10, 12K, depending on the size of lot and pressure needed. That's currently some items that we're working right now to add some clarity to that, and working with our building services, planning and development and such, to just essentially add clarity for folks who are going through the process. Recommendation 2 is our urban ag plan map. Urban agriculture community health explorer. Essentially, it adds a visualization of the city of Dallas urban ag landscape, the geo context framed with equity. Next steps of those action items we're looking at essentially land access. So then we have identified parcel land, public, private, as well as city-owned land, and we're looking at methods of how we get the public on this land sites. So there's different methods we can go through. Other cities have done similar programming, creating the could be also did benchmarking, like that. And then third on this item is matchmaking modeling process for aspiring farmers and connecting them with private landowners. And there is, I will say right now, so the second half of the movie, we do the demo of the map. There is a QR code on screen if you want to see the map. But I will say we currently have some server issues right now, so it may not be at its full potential. The last half of this, I'll be showing a screen share of like a recording we had of the last year. Recommendation 3 looks at providing urban agriculture education resources and support the Dallas residents. Just to highlight one of the other grants we were able to launch at the end of fall to winter was the Growers Education Workforce Development. This gears to our third solution of workforce development with internships and training opportunities. Essentially, with this grant, we are able to connect local growers with folks who are wanting to get that on-hands training, but able to actually add like pay somewhere a means to be able to pay them to come on. If anybody has done urban agriculture or growing farm, it's not necessarily the easiest item to do, and especially a lot of urban agriculture sites, and they're still a business at the end of the day, so there is still like budget items that they still have to make. But with this workforce development grant, also in line with, I believe we also are working with this with Dallas County Community, Dallas County DC, HHS. We are able to connect local growers, and those don't have to be in the city of Dallas, they just have to be regionally around. The only need is that the applicant who's going to do the internship has to be a city of Dallas resident. And this is going to actually be starting this spring, and if it goes well, we can our second one next year. Another item I want to bring to your attention, this is something for anybody here is interested in reading more about urban agriculture and your health. We actually started in the last year our health through agriculture series. We have an upcoming one this February 20th, so next Thursday at the West Dallas Multipurpose Center. Currently, we're meeting once a month there from 6 to 7:30, and we do English and also Spanish translations if necessary. I think if there's any other languages that are requested, we can also go through our office of equity or those translation services to have live translation. But the idea is that essentially we are working with residents to get a better idea of like we're working with in-garden items, taking it to the kitchen and actually creating like medicinal, holistical items that you can consume. One of the ones we've done before were elderberries. We also showed like garlics, resilience. Part of the class is also going in the garden and show you how to grow it, methods of like splicing, and the do's and don'ts of organic. But if you do want to join, this QR code is there. I would recommend the sign up. The class is free for anybody and everybody who wants to join. We just do ask people to sign up so we have a like how much profit we can deliver for that day. And then 4 real quickly is facility collaborations, partnerships among the stakeholders. Really, we've been hyper-focused on the urban agriculture focus events. Through COOP, we were able to curate essentially an offshoot of the Dallas Inner Cities Growers. It is not necessarily under the city of Dallas per se, but we have, one of us is actually part of the board for that. They curate, last year they actually had a summit at SMU, that was their second year, went pretty positive. And essentially we are creating a space for growers to get together, share knowledge, interact in a space. I will say a lot of the things we heard back when we got community feedback from initially creating the COOP was that there was a lot of silos, and they are hoping to see the city, they can kind of create that circular connection with everybody here in between that. But the DIG Summit they should be announcing soon with the specific dates and when it's going to happen by the end of spring, I believe, but it's typically around October. And then upcoming, they're going to have DIG Summit, DIG's 1,050 growers is working with Jumping Moms Farms, and they're going to be a farm tour April 5th. I recommend just to look them up on social media, and they will have it. Here overall just shows working items we've done in the past couple of years, what it's been giving out seedlings, bigs events, adding in new beds. We've also supported Jumping Mama on Juneteenth events with Black food sovereignty and adding a community aspect into that. But yeah, we do a little bit of everything with like community and our program. And recommendation 5, as I mentioned before, it's necessarily, it's not the most important, it's just there's certain building blocks that need to be built out before we really get to recommendation 5, but it looks at building market opportunities. And I just wanted to note here, the whole reason of like why local. So when we, in our team, when we're looking at overall, we're looking at the overarching theme of people, planet, and probable livelihoods. So this is an example, it's created from the American Civil Indian Impact Survey series, but from 2021. But if, let's say, Dallas population, 1.2 million of that year, of that population, it's like 10% of them shifted their spending habits from non-local to local. So removing themselves from Walmart, Kroger, maybe just purchasing their soaps at a reusable local shop, going to a farmer's market, or going directly to a CSA box. There are a lot of urban agriculture sites here in Dallas that do CSA being community agriculture supported boxes of vegetables that are in season. But if 10% of the 1.2 million population were to do that, this shift would create over 320,000 new jobs, 108 million new dollars in wages, 260 million in total economic impact. And simply, we're talking about 10 items you buy, maybe just one of them is shift over to something local. But yeah, those are our recommendations, and I am going to go with a review of our urban ag map, what's in it, and then I'll have like a, I guess, like live demonstration of the map, and I'll give a pause here just in case anybody has any questions in the chat actually or anything. Okay, yeah. And if you have any questions as we go, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll try to take some pauses and answer as we go, or we'll capture it at the end. So just a soft reminder, this second part here is looking at recommendation 2, supporting land access, the visual transportation of like urban ag and how that looks like in the city of Dallas. This map was created in partnership with the agriculture consulting team, Feed LLC, and as well as feedback from our local community stakeholders. Truly, we would not be here and how we've been developing this item without the folks who have did the work beyond the board, who have been advocating for healthy food for their local communities. This map essentially shows a snapshot of the city of Dallas urban agricultural landscape in the geographic context, framed with equity, and it's designed with community in mind, as the map illustrates community-specific needs and recommendations for targeted interventions for fostering equitable urban agriculture growth. The map is overall used for anybody, but specifically, I would say policymakers, grant writers, food system nonprofits, urban farmers, academics, as well as the everyday resident who just wants to know what's going on in their neighborhood. The map showcases overall our estimated current acreage of urban agriculture production, increased transparency of urban agricultural landscape, as well as serving as foundation for whether groups to expand on urban agriculture in the future. And here I'm just going to do a quick overview of the major data layers that we have. It shows historical urban agriculture sites from 2021 to 2024. They'll have like a pop-up giving you details of like what's the best contact district it's in, a brief description, and here on the right you can just see like overall all the sites activated. Community assets, these are identified as items that can support urban agriculture growth. We're looking at if that helps support leverage vacant land and increase production here in Dallas soil. Facilities, food pantries, actual meal sites, substituted senior meal sites, and private housing for buildings and developments are one of the few that are identified in this map. The concept of this is that essentially just having access to vacant land, there is more needs and more than just having the land that we use for the grow or an agriculture site. So for example, let's say there's a big facility nearby a site, and this, let's say the big facility can be an NGO that could sponsor the community that wants to have that lot. They could also help them in like giving them a room to be able to do training, or they need to use the restroom, water access. If they don't have water access, they can work across. It's just helping to identify these items from the chaos that there already is, and when you're going down the street, you see a lot. It's like, oh, what's going on with that place? Like sometimes there's like a building development that's seen in the future that we might not know about, or some are truly just vacant lots for foreclosure, whichever reason. Food pantries, of course, not only just to donate food, but most food pantries have cold storage. So you're going to work to the ripeness of tomato. As soon as you take it off, you only have a handful of days. That's why we have this whole diesel issue when we have trucks and everything coming as quick as possible to drop off produce. You don't necessarily want to know what it is for bananas to get to your grocery store. All yellow. But there's just a lot of items here that we've identified that support vacant lands to become urban agricultural functional sites. We also identified land opportunities, as I mentioned before, public, private, and city-owned that can be utilized for future urban activities such as growing, selling, storing, and composting. For the City of Dallas vacant lots, those are mostly the ones we're kind of key focusing right now, since there's methods to be able to. There's different methods we're looking at. It's not through the land transfer program, adopt a spot with parks and code items that we can see and get public access to these lots, because there is a bunch of folks who are interested in growing. It's not like getting the direct access to it. We also identified to be on parcels with high UA potential, such as high network of urban ag sites nearby or community access nearby. And the map on the right, the big map, shows and can identify like, and it just gives you an idea of what you can actually identify from these parcels of land from public and private. So some of these are DART owned, some are utility like Encore owned. For example, there are schools, DISD, Dallas County, items like that. Community social determinants of health. A key factor when we're looking at for equitable prioritization, right? The areas of Dallas that are in most need and will benefit in urban agriculture, green space, healthy food, and community reinvestment. A lot of the items we use in the health sphere on this map, we look at it in social vulnerability index by census tract as well as district. For the reason social vulnerability is typically accounted for census. But when we're speaking to the public or we're speaking to a council member, typically their relevance of mine is not, oh, I'm in census tract 201. I'm like on district 8 and district 7, items like that. We also identified adult diabetes per 10K population census and for district, and as well as the national walkability and fitness reference site. And there's a few more layers, but I'll show that for the demo. So for all the items that I had mentioned before, these are recalculated and we've done an analysis with this map. Essentially, and this is how we create our urban agriculture priority areas or UPAs. So these are essentially an overlay of census tracts in the city that has a geographic convergence of above average need and opportunities for expanding urban agriculture. So you can look at this as it's like, it's not only showing spaces where like there is a more urgency to have more health focused programming, but also there are already resources on nearby or on site, what have you, that could support the growth. Need is defined by the suitability index, as I mentioned, and above average across all city census tracts, which is 0.47, and that alone comprises over out of the 381 tracts we have here in the city. That is anything that's above 7 point, like the higher the number, the more socially vulnerable that community can be. That comprises over 48% of our census tracts here in the city of Dallas. And the majority that we've noticed are average in the southern portion of Dallas. So we're looking at actually districts 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. On the right hand, you can see the breakdown of what the SUBI is. It has 4 key categories: socioeconomic status, household composition, disability, minority, language, as well as housing type and transportation. From the 4 categories, it breaks down to further other 14 subcategories. So it really gets an in-depth view of what that community is facing. This data is an industry data standard from the CDC and from the Census Bureau. Our opportunities are identified by the 3 categories of urban agriculture activity or sites, community assets, as well as land opportunities. Each of these items are calculated for the population and then readjusted for the tract of 10K population. So then these couple maps I'm going to show here just kind of gives you an idea of what I mean by each one of these items, calculate the 10K population, and overview overall. So we can see land opportunities, they're kind of vast in between depending per district. There's a majority on the southern west side of Dallas. But when we're looking at the vulnerability need, there's a high, that 48% of census tract southern portion. There's some you can see in the northeastern portion of Dallas, but majority is southern. Here, just looking at the overall activity of urban agricultural sites plus farmers markets, and then here the community assets where the above average business items are done. All those items pre-calculated gives us our urban agriculture priority areas. So we get tier 1, tier 2, and so we go real brief on what those items are. I will say tier 1 and tier 2 doesn't necessarily mean that one is more important than the other. It just looks at the strategies that we should be prioritizing for these areas. Tier 2 UPA has above average CB, above average community assets for 10K population, and above average land opportunities. So in those areas, you would want to prioritize urban agriculture programming with those community assets. So connecting facilities, food pantry sites with the current sites that are already there, or any sites that we're wanting to grow out. Tier 1 UPA has the same criteria as tier 2, except it also looks at the above average rates of current urban agriculture activity for 10K population. So all that meaning that the prioritization should be capitalizing partnerships, building on top of what the current urban agriculture network is, and that's in that area. So there's still essentially there might be what I had mentioned before, what community members have mentioned, that silos that are happening in certain areas, even though there are community urban agriculture sites in these areas. The right model just kind of gives you an overview of the model of how we determine urban agriculture priority areas, and the left table is just all our threshold counts for the tier 1, tier 2 overall items and such. But just note of all the 56 tiers, 1 and 2, we approximate around a little under 280,000 residents that represent around 15% of the total population in tracts here in City of Dallas. Here, those are some examples of what we can create out of this data. As I mentioned before, there's land parcel opportunities, as well as we have the community assets, and just kind of this information is very helpful when coming to a council member. And wanting to identify with them of like, hey, here are opportunity areas, here are some community assets we've identified, and these are the most urgent needs in your district. It gives them a more round knowledge, because most folks, like, they will typically know the area best. So like, it's better to give them an overscope view of like their district versus like all of City of Dallas, this whole left side of Dallas, you know? Yeah. Here in the second half, let's see if I can actually get to I'm going to switch over to our demo. Typically, I would go straight to our map, but our map is halfway working out. The QR code is still there if you want to check it out, but I would recommend we should have that fully running by. They're telling me around May, but